Before we begin today's ceremony, I'd like to take just a moment to recognize some of our honored guests with us here this morning. From the Palm Coast City Council, and please hold your applause until the end. We'll give them one big round of applause. From City Council, Heidi Shipley, Vice Mayor, Jason DiLorenzo, Bill McGuire, Steve Nobile. From the Board of County Commissioners, George Hans, Nate McLaughlin, Charlie Erickson, Barbara Revels. Sheriff James Manfrey, the Honorable Melissa Moore Stenz, Judge, Flagler County Court, Nikki and Larry White of the American Flag Project, Randy Steppleford representing Congressman DeSantis, and the Honorable Paul Renner. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Would you please welcome our guests? I'm John Netz, serving my last term as mayor, so this will be my last 4th of July celebration. I hope you're all going to enjoy it. At this time, we're going to have you ask that you stand, if possible, for the presentation of colors, the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the Star-Spangled Banner, and then a naval cannon salute. Don't be startled by the salute when it comes. City Council, would you join me, please?
Present arms.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The most frequently quoted passage from the American Declaration of Independence states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Our Declaration of Independence was adopted by the Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776. It signified a new nation was formed, the United States of America. History verifies that Thomas Jefferson composed the original draft. Once completed, he submitted it to Benjamin Franklin and John Adams for their changes. Eventually, it made its final destination to Congress, where it was amended for the last time, and John Hancock placed his most prominent signature on the document. 240 years ago, our forefathers declared that Americans deserved and earned the liberty and the pursuit of happiness they fought so forcefully to obtain. Now, centuries later, these freedoms have become the true definition of our independence. Today, on July 4th, 2016, we once again celebrate our way of life, our rights to freedom and choices. Which of our freedoms do we cherish the most as Americans? Is it our right to freedom of religion that assures us we can worship who we choose and when and where and how we choose? Or is it our right to freedom of speech that guarantees that our words can be heard without fear of reprimand? Is it our privilege to vote that guarantees the leadership choices we make are counted? Our freedom to pursue happiness gives us the privilege to live or travel anywhere we wish, to work at any job for which we may qualify, to marry and to raise a family, to receive an education, to join a political party, a union, or any other organization of our own choice, and to enjoy the company of good friends in a public venue without fear of harm. This last freedom that I mentioned was catastrophically violated on June 12th. I would be remiss this morning if I didn't take a moment to express Palm Coast's sorrow and condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in Orlando's recent tragedy, and then looking on the other tragedies overseas. The young people at Pulse Club were simply expressing their freedom to be themselves, loving music, friendship, and good times. Their injuries and loss of life should remind us to unite in the climate of freedoms created by our forefathers. Regardless of our race, religion, how we live, or whom we live with, we are all Americans, free to be ourselves, without permission from anyone and without fear of intimidation or retaliation. So on this 240th birthday of the United States of America, remember to give thanks for our freedoms, whether it be at a parade, a backyard barbecue, at the beach, whether you're waving flags, enjoying fireworks, or just being you. At all of these traditional American Independence Day venues, it reminds us of our birthright and our honor as American citizens to live the opportunity that is provided by our democracy. On behalf of the Palm Coast City Council, I thank all of you for exercising your freedom by choosing to attend this morning's ceremony at Heroes Memorial Park. We wish you a joyous, safe Independence Day holiday and look forward to seeing you again next year here by the dawn's early light. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call upon Nikki and Larry White of the American Flag Project for some remarks.
Larry always chooses me to speak because I was once a teacher. It's supposed to give you some unique skills. Hi, I'm so glad you came on this summer day. In a whole busy summer of 1776, our founding fathers got together and decided it was time to separate from London and England and the Great Britain. They set up a Declaration of Independence, which meant we were free to be our own country and develop the way we wanted to. They declared, and declaring means standing strongly with pride. Well, the American flag and patriotism are linked in many ways and surpassed only by the lives and the injuries of our warriors and our first responders. President Lincoln called those lives the last full measure of devotion. The first American flag was created during the Revolutionary War, yet it's extremely similar to the one we have now, with the exception that they started with 13 stripes and how many stars? 13. Now we have 50. The growth of this country was significant and took a lot of years, and yet the Declaration has stood the test of time. The colors in the flag are representative. They have meaning also. I don't think we often think about that. There are 7 red ones and 6 white ones. The red is for hardiness and valor. The white was for purity and innocence. And the blue stands for vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The dark blue separates the stars and symbolizes the autonomy of the states, which is protected by the 10th Amendment. The American flag and patriotism link is really difficult to avoid because we have flags all over the world. Reveille is blown in the morning at sunrise and taps at sunset at military bases and embassies around the world. The American flag is the symbol of all nations. The American flag is a symbol that all nations recognize for strength and support. Patriotism begins with the patriot, one who strongly supports or fights for their country. We believe it's vital to have patriots who not only support our country, but understand why they do that. The support and willingness to stand up for your country has been demonstrated literally in millions of times throughout American history. It started with the Revolution. Washington crossing the Delaware, how many remember that picture with that flag? The firefighters and the first responders during 9/11 attacks and the millions of other places. Many patriots show their support just by voting their beliefs in elections. With freedom comes responsibility. To conclude, the American flag is a symbol of freedom from dominance and freedom to live your days in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. The flag gives you a way to salute yourself as one of the citizens who can freely vote and influence the leaders of our governments. We each relate to the American flag in our own unique way. Some of us can remember learning the Pledge of Allegiance and maybe even the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. How many can remember that pride we had when we said it for the first time by ourselves? Some of us have relationships with the military and others who have protected us. Many of us have shared events that create both negative feelings due to loss or positive feelings due to the pride we feel. Some others relate mainly to the flags on the parades and fireworks, with or without recognizing the significance of that event. And my favorite is when Neil Armstrong put the flag on the moon. Larry and I have created the American Flag Project, a nonprofit organization, as our effort to increase patriotism and voter participation. And we accomplish that by providing flags to citizens. We appreciate all the help that anybody we've given. We've had some wonderful benefactors and some wonderful donations to keep this project going, and we intend to do that and spread it throughout the world. Thanks to the City Council, on Tuesday, I forgot the date, a week or so ago, they made a proclamation that said they would support Palm Coast being the most patriotic city. And as you drive around the city, notice the number of streets that are lined with flags. Some of that's done independently, and some of that has been done by the project that we've started. However you relate to the flag, I hope that we've been able to raise your awareness of your patriotism enough so you will fly your flag proudly and regularly. Long may she wave. Thank you. That's my part.
Thank you, Nikki and Larry. Now I'd like to call upon the Palm Coast Community Band for a musical tribute. Now I'd like to invite our honored guests to come up to the podium for a reading of the Declaration of Independence. On a warm, humid Philadelphia morning, the members of the Second Continental Congress gathered together and pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. As they signed their names to this declaration, the sun began to rise on a new nation, an American nation. Thomas Jefferson wrote with such incredible passion and eloquence about human liberation and the promise of a democratic republic. Scholars believe Jefferson intended the Declaration to be performed, not just read. Its words and its rhythm were written to be spoken in proud and defiant terms in grand public places. On this glorious day, we honor the sacred words of this document in celebration of our independence. Here now are those sentiments expressed on this day in 1776.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem the most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candid world. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be attained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of the land.
He's obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their office and the amount of and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eke out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of its superior to civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit in the inhabitants of these states, by cutting off trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many ways of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us all, cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of the frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts of their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and our correspondence.
They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states of rights may do.
Everybody step forward, please. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to call on the Palm Coast Community Band for another musical tribute, Stars and Stripes Forever. Thank you very much. In conclusion, I'd like to express my thanks to the members of the Palm Coast Fire Department who served as our color guard, to the Palm Coast Community Band for their wonderful music renditions, to Nikki and Larry of the American Flag Project, to our honored guests and readers of the Declaration of Independence, but most importantly, to all of you for attending this great, wonderful day of celebration, the 4th of July. Thank you. Have a safe trip and have a wonderful rest of the day home.